would have thought that a college campus could also function as an arboretum and botanical garden? And Mariana, I know that you played a major role in the development of this arboretum and botanical garden. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about how it all came to be.
Okay. When my husband became president, almost 2006, I took a back seat to see what I could be doing to contribute to the campus other than doing my normal duties as First Lady. I helped with other avenues within the buildings, but my love was plants, and I always loved flowers.
So you're a gardener?
I'm a gardener myself.
Okay,
I'm an amateur gardener, I'm not an experienced gardener. And my husband loves flowers, and he wanted a lot of flowers. The campus was beautiful when we first came here and had lots of pretty flowers, but he wanted more. So I worked very closely with Matt Mahoney, our director of landscape, and we added a lot more flowers. And then at that same time, the campus was expanding. We were building new buildings and getting bigger and bigger, and that was our chance to add to our collection of trees and make all our buildings very special on the outside too, not just the structure themselves. So I thought that would be nice to have an arboretum and be able to select what trees we want, whether they're native or not native. So I worked with the biology department at that time and developed a wish list. And I wanted to have an arboretum, but it was not an easy matter to do that because I wanted the students to be involved.
Right.
So a new professor had come at that same time. Her name was Emily Neckel. And she said she will help me start an arboretum. So that's what we did. We signed up and had an arboretum committee, and we celebrated Arbor Day every day. We had a selection of students, community leaders, experienced people like landscape architects and horticulturists who were on our committee, who advised us on what to do and how to do it. And we started as a project for the students to be able to be involved. So they helped us label and identify the trees and label them. We developed a system on how to label all the trees, and we wanted to map them, but we were doing it the amateur way. And later on I'll explain how we got further with that. But that took a long time.
Oh, I bet. I bet.
And because we're working with student volunteers, it was very slow. Our student, we had a student who developed our logo, which is our dogwood tree.
Oh, great.
And then she would sketch the leaf of every tree so that we could put it on our labels. And because my husband loved a lot of flowers, I said I would like to develop gardens. And I said this would be a way to raise money and help him raise money. Right. So the first one, I love roses. Roses are one of my favorite plants. This was our first garden.
So this is the first garden.
This was the first garden, and it was just a flat piece of area of grass. And I said, you know, the worst could be that it doesn't succeed and we'll just grass it back up. Right. So please let me try. And he asked me how much it'll cost, and I said, well, it may cost nothing if we can get a donor.
There you go.
But like within a couple of months, I did get a donor, and it was
fantastic.
one of our trustees named it after his wife.
You mentioned that this is the rose garden. You have other gardens that are kind of tucked in special places all over campus,
we have
right?
now 22 gardens.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And each one of these plants is labeled, and we have a map for every garden, and we have insert boxes, as you can see over there, that have where you can go around every garden. And we're working on books to kind of document everything we have. But to kind of, this took a process of like 6-7 years, and to like halfway through, maybe a couple of years ago, it became too big of a job for me alone to kind of do the whole thing with, and I'm not an experienced horticulturist, so we needed more depth in our gardens. And that's when we saw John Rothling, and he came and helped us with the gardens and redid a lot of the gardens, and then added a lot of his own expertise in new gardens, and helped us a lot with the Arboretum, and brought the mapping project, which we were doing by hand, and it was very amateurish, very old-fashioned. Now, if you go to our website, you can click onto the Arboretum map. You can click on a tree, it'll tell you what the tree is, the botanical name, the name. Eventually we're going to put more information, the height of the tree, how wide it grows, where it's from.
Fantastic.
It's going to be very exciting. We're going to do the same for all our gardens, actually. Our gardens themselves are mapped also.
Oh, that's wonderful. You know, it'll be fun to watch this project grow, and what a great way to combine education and college with a place for people to come and enjoy. And we really look forward to going and looking at many of these gardens and look forward to talking to John. So thanks so much for telling us about that.
You're welcome. And it's just, other than just the beauty, we use it for education. Our teachers are using the mapping program.
That's wonderful.
And we involve the community and the students to volunteer. So,
well, thanks very much.
Thank you very much for
that
coming to see.
As I visit gardens throughout North Carolina and throughout the country for that matter, there's always an NC State connection. This is John Rothling, and John was a student of ours in the Department of Horticultural Science, graduated in 2002, connected with the J.C. Ralston Arboretum in that he worked there for a while. Well, John is now the curator of grounds here at High Point University's Arboretum and Botanical Garden. And John, it's a beautiful place. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about how the Botanical Garden and how the Arboretum is organized.
We're basically campus-wide, so I've got 320 acres, give or take an acre or so, to play with. So it's a wide open playing field to do a lot of different things.
So you're really tending to the college campus grounds as well as creating gardens, is that correct?
Exactly. It's one of the things where instead of just having a landscape, we've taken the landscape and elevated it to, I think someone used the phrase, a garden-esque landscape. Okay. So we're taking those spaces and we have individual gardens that are scattered about that are more intensive, some themed, some just, a space to direct you towards.
Well, if I were a visitor to High Point University but wanted to check out the horticulture, check out the plants, what are some of the gardens, featured gardens, that you would hope they would see?
In spring, the azalea path, which we have around 57 different types of azaleas, a lot of the encore azaleas. It's one of our missions to also teach people, so we've gathered all the different encore azaleas as an opportunity to showcase which ones are best for our area. That's spectacular in spring. We've got azaleas, we've got witch hazels, quince. That whole garden just lights up, and a couple thousand bulbs scattered amongst that garden. One garden that's near and dear to my heart, because it was the first garden that I created as an example of what my vision was for the campus, is the woodland hillside. Yes. Then we have the lakeside gardens, where we took something that was utilitarian. You have to create runoff capture ponds. Well, there's no reason they have to be just a pond with grass. So we've created the lakeside gardens, and we've planted things around there that'll thrive in wet soils or dry soils. That's spectacular. Around the pool, we have a tropical garden that's probably a zone or zone and a half warmer. We have sago palms that are living in High Point University.
That's fantastic.
That should be at the beach.
Now I saw there was a perennial garden, and it was called the Faculty Perennial Garden?
That was one of the original gardens started before I came here, where faculty and staff brought in plants from their own gardens to help create this garden. And it's one of those things of making the connection with not only just the students, which is always where we're reaching towards, is to bring the students in, but the faculty and staff to get involved and to have a connection. And that's part of it.
Well, now, speaking of connections and students, I was really intrigued with the area where people come in and park, that first, fountain area there. Tell us about that.
It was amazing. When I first came to High Point University, and when you pull in, when students have their college visit, when they come in, it's a special experience, because this is a big transition for a parent.
Absolutely.
But they come in, they see their name, and prior to what we've done with that space, it was just they had their sign with their name on it. But now we've created this what we call the welcome garden. It was born from a vision from Miss Qubein that we transformed to fit our climate, because originally she saw it in France. Well, of course, North Carolina is anything but France at times in terms of our climate. But we created this space that has perennials, it has annuals, it has woody plants in it, something that it's an impact of this is different.
Right. Now, the last thing I want to talk about real quick is collections. I know you're still committed to creating collections, being an arboretum, and the example that I can see even right from here is the redbud collections. I know that's a unique connection for you.
Redbuds, it goes back to my connection with the Ralston Arboretum, because they were near and dear to JC's heart. They've always been a favorite plant of mine. So we've built, redbud collection. Of course, the Ralston has the crown jewel, but I can kind of, still have my own collection, and part of it is trying to look at, in this market we've got a couple gold redbuds, we've got a couple purple leaf redbuds, we've got a couple weeping redbuds, and I can kind of get them all in here and try to plant them in areas where we can see, is there a better one?
Which one does the best?
And that is a goal.
Well, John, thank you very much for, highlighting some of those gardens. We'll go take a look at them, and it's great to see you in a place here at High Point. You're doing so well. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Our plant of the week has a great NC State and High Point University connection. Remember, send in your suggestions for a plant of the week to our website or our Facebook page, and if we use it on a show, we'll send you an In the Garden t-shirt. Well, our own John Rothling is responsible for Cercis canadensis Hearts of Gold, the Hearts of Gold redbud. And as the story goes, a friend of the Rothling family, and the Rothlings live in the greater Greensboro area, had a tree they thought was a little bit sick, a redbud if you will, and invited the family to come and take a look at it. Well, lo and behold, here was a plant that had leaves that were chartreuse colored as they emerge in the spring. And in fact, if you look closer, you can see even the young leaves have a pink tinge to them. Well, that plant wasn't sick. It was a chance seedling that they had growing in their backyard. John took some budwood and had it grafted, and lo and behold, we have this new cultivar of plant called Hearts of Gold. Hearts of Gold redbud grows about 20 to 25 feet, and as that new growth emerges in the spring, you can see the small leaves have a pink tinge to them, and as they get larger, they turn a bright yellow, only to turn a light green or chartreuse color as they mature. Now, through the summer, this plant will turn a little bit more green, and it'll develop a yellow fall color. This plant should be planted in a well-drained soil in a full sun location. You can get away with a partially sunny location, but you might not have that brilliant color like you see here. Now, John has chosen to plant this plant in amongst other redbuds, his redbud collection, as he mentioned earlier in today's show, and he's got it planted right next to a rising sun redbud. Now, John's put the two together to evaluate how well they grow and to compare and contrast the color of the leaves and the habit of growth, etc. It's a great opportunity to evaluate two plants that resemble one another to see how they're different and how much they're the same. It's a great plant of the week, Cercis canadensis Hearts of Gold, the Hearts of Gold redbud. Well, that's about all the time we have for this week. And we especially want to thank the folks at High Point University and at Paul J. Senior Botanical Garden, and especially John and Adrienne Rothling. And if you haven't figured it out now, John and Adrienne are husband and wife, and they work right down the road from one another. So thanks to both of them for their hospitality. So until next time, I'll be looking for you in the garden.